welcome to Comic Wars. Well, our third season of Comic Wars. This is a show where we pit two fighters against each other from different universes, sometimes the same universe, from TV, from movies, from comics, video games, you name it. This is where we let both combatants duke it out to see who is going to reign supreme in said matchup. Today, we are going to be discussing the matchup between two homeless comic book characters. It's an interesting matchup. As you guys can see from the screen, we have on one side, we have Freakshow from Crowworks Comics. He's the Clownface gang's enforcer. And then on the other side, we have the homeless superhero of the quote-unquote Outback, end quote, the Maxx. So who's going to win in this battle between hero and villain? Well, let's find out right now. So first up, let's go over our ground rules. If we had any guests today, we don't have any guests today. We might on Friday. I'm working on that right now. But this is where we would give some guest intros, little details about said guests, and then, of course, allow them to guess initially who they think would win. After that, we get into background details. This is where we break things down, such as their name, age, height, weight, if there's any little tidbits about them, where they operate out of, any kind of psychological traits, things like this. This is where we break this down. It's where you kind of get to know who they are, if you will. After that, then we get into the feats. This is where we start breaking down, well, their feats, their strengths, their durability, their speed and agility, their martial prowess, or rather, how well they fight, how well they know how to fight. Gadgets, powers, you name it. This is where we break everything else down. That's going to really, ultimately, these are going to be the biggest points when it comes down to, rather than meat and potatoes, if you will, of the combat. Then after that, we get into the data analysis, where we start breaking things down, divvying out points, who's really got, an edge in set areas. And you'll see that today that there is a little bit of a new setup, so you guys can actually just very, very clearly see where the points are allocated and all this, what they're for and all that. After that, then we get into character pros and cons. This is going to be more or less discussion right here. It's kind of combined with data analysis. This is directly where the points are going to be calculated out. Who's got a huge edge, who doesn't have an edge, maybe who just has a slight edge, things like that. And this is where we start looking at these things and kind of how they weigh against each other, if you will. After that, then we get into guest analysis. What the guests think. Do they want to change their guess? Do they still want to stand by what they had said before? Things like that. And then after that, of course, we get into the outcome. This is where we start breaking it down. Who's going to have an edge and why in the combat ultimately? Who will actually pull out ahead? And then after that, we get into the preview for the following episode. So, all right, without further ado, let's just get right on in. So, our first combatant. I forgot to put them up here. Joy, I thought I already did, but my apologies. It's not Michael Myers here, so I do apologize for Michael Myers being up on the screen. Let me just get this taken care of. So, our first combatant is Freakshow. So, he is roughly 21 years old. His real name is actually Arnold Jacobson. He's about 7 feet tall. His occupation, more or less, is an enforcer, the Clownface gang enforcer. Now, he's not exactly a stable mind. Just going to put it bluntly, he's very, very, very manipulated. End of the day, Clownface, as you guys have seen from Season 2, when we went over villains, when he faced off against the Joker, Clownface may be devious and tricky, but he's not sane. Okay? Now, Freakshow was manipulated by this man into becoming an enforcer for him. And it's a very sad story. Crow did try to save him from his clutches, but ultimately Freakshow was shot in the head and killed by Clownface, who saw him ultimately after he couldn't handle Crow as a loose end. Couldn't have that. So this character is, yes, his first appearance in the Crow comic. It didn't end so well. He's only had one issue, and that's all it's going to end up being because, well, he's dead. But all right. But just to kind of break down his stats a little bit more, he's about 7 feet tall, he's 300 pounds, and of course his area of operation was Rain City. Now, his personality is a little bit interesting here because he's not manic or anything, but he's very quick to anger. He's easily manipulated, as I've already stated before. He's depressed, but he also possesses a very, very low intelligence. This is not somebody that's very intelligent. This does come back from his upbringing, unfortunately. So, but it is going to be something that's going to kind of hold him back in this fight, as you guys will see. Low intelligence between both of these characters, both combatants. It's going to prove to be kind of an interesting thing. As you guys have also seen from last season, intelligence plays a huge factor usually. We've never actually had more or less an unintelligent character really come out ahead. But now we have two of these unintelligent characters really duking it out. So, and just a little tidbit about him. He loves and hates women that are similar to his deceased sister, who he actually killed. And he adamantly believes that Clownface is his hero, all the way up until his death. It's just, like I said, a little bit of a sad story. After that, we got to get into his feats here. So, what he's bringing to the fight here is, well, he's pretty much got low-tier superhuman level strength. He was able to hit Crow hard enough to throw him over 20 feet and partially shatter his armor plates. As we get to see in issue 2, he was able to also lift up a huge stack of building material. We're talking wood, like wood boards. We're talking solid wood boards, mind you, and he just picked up a big old pile of them and threw them pretty good distance, give or take about 20 feet or so. And then he threw them down into the stairway, which Crow was supposed to be climbing, which he mistimed. And he totally messed that up and gave away that he was up there. So, but so this tells you he's pretty strong. But on top of that, he can easily snap a human female spine with a single punch, which takes roughly around 1200 psi. So if you guys aren't familiar with what psi is, that's pounds per square inch. We're talking just sheer force over just an inch. 1200 pounds per square inch, okay? It's quite a bit. As for durability, well, he receives several stabs and slashes from Crow's throwing quills and continued to fight almost entirely unfazed. This is crucial, but Crow was also quickly just dispatched him. This guy's got no combat experience, as you guys can also see on the screen here. He has no combat training. This is basically, it's like a wild animal fighting. There's no actual combat training. As for speed and agility, well, he easily caught up to a human female victim running in heels. As fast as she could go, which isn't very fast. So, once again, no martial prowess at all, so no combat training. When it comes to ingenuity, well, this is basically how he operates here. He utilizes his size and strength to overwhelm his opponents. Just simply put, he's big, he's strong, you know, that's basically it. And he doesn't come with any powers or any gadgets or anything like this, no equipment whatsoever. He is just bare knuckle. He also, just to kind of give a little tidbit, he does run on all fours with one leg being really unable to really stand on so well. He stands on, as you can see, one strong leg, and then he's got two really powerful longer arms. So he does typically run more like a gorilla, if you will. So it's a little interesting. But what about his opponent? Well, here's the Maxx. So his real name is, well, Dave. He's a homeless guy that was hit by, the person he's trying to save the most, which is Julie, who had the ability to basically get into a different reality known as the Outback. It's a little weird. It's kind of a interesting kind of take. It's almost kind of like a different dimension, if you will. Whether it's there or not, ultimately we don't know, but we do know that the Maxx himself does draw power from it. His suit is magical, and it is completely connected to the Outback. He's got all sorts of powers that come along with it, but we're not really sure exactly how old, but we believe he's in his 30s or so. He's roughly about 5 foot 8 inches tall. He weighs approximately between 170 and 180 pounds. His occupation is a homeless superhero, simply put. And his area of operation, we're not sure on the city he operates in per se. We know he's operated in Gotham at one point, but we know that his typical area of operation is the quote Outback, end quote. As for his personality, well, he's forgetful, but he is focused on ultimately protecting Julie. A little tidbit about him: he can see the Is, which are monstrous entities in the Outback that are either herbivores or carnivores. They can either be good or evil, and their diet apparently depicts either they're going to be good or evil. So herbivores good, and carnivores bad. As for his feats, that should have been feats, not background. So his strength, well, he is capable of breaking solid rock with punches. So that takes roughly around 1,800 psi if it's marble or lesser stone. Anything greater than that, and it's going to be 2,000 plus psi. So pretty strong. As for durability, well, he withstood a building-sized explosion. Just knocked him out in the end. He also molded lava claws on his hands with little to no pain. As for speed and agility, well, he's at least athletic level as he can outrun the savage dragon, who is, well, purely beyond, well, he's an alien, but by comic book standards, he is very well superhuman in every sense of the word. As for martial prowess, well, he's got, once again, no martial arts training. As for ingenuity, he is very similar, except he doesn't have the size necessarily to really overwhelm people like bigger guys like Freakshow. So he's gonna still rely heavily on brute strength. As for powers, well, this is how he breaks down. He's a low tier superhuman, so he has the low tier superhuman strength and durability, and he has complete knowledge of the Outback, and I can also see the Is true appearances. As for the equipment he brings, well, he brings his claw gloves. So, like I said, he's pretty much similar to Freakshow in this sense, because powers, are they powers? Really, the only power that he has outside of what Freakshow's got here is, well, the superhuman strength, is that he's got complete knowledge of the Outback, and he can see the Is, which are creatures in the Outback. As for something a little bit interesting here, now, he actually has some crippling weaknesses here. Okay, so this is where he differs pretty greatly from Freakshow. His insanity and childish thought process, huge weakness here. He also tends to reveal his plans to opponents. Once again, comes back to the childlike thought process here. He does suffer from memory loss, so even in combat, this could occur. And can easily lose train of thought if he is transported to the Outback, which does actually occur pretty frequently. So this should remind some of you guys of our, of kind of a callback to our season 1 between Ghost Kiss and Totally Naked Man. There was a similar dynamic here. This character here, the Maxx, it has, I don't want to say a similar power set to Totally Naked Man, but when it comes down to losing train of thought, and all this. This does go as a direct callback to that and go between him and Ghostface. So, well, totally Naked Man and Ghostface, or Ghost Kiss. So, just something just to kind of throw out there. So that should kind of play out similarly. Expect a character to basically just kind of be in and out of, well, different thought processes and all this, and having some forgetfulness go on. All right, so we have to break this down now. I'm going to give you guys a freebie on the points so you guys can see kind of how this breaks down. But we have to go over the character analysis. So let's just go over this real quick. First thing we've got, our first category is background. Now, if we go over background, you're going to see some things here, right? You got height and weight. If you were to go and compare between the Maxx and Freakshow absolutely dominates him here. Because, well, he's 7 feet versus 5'8", so he's now got the reach. On top of that, the just sheer size, he's 7 feet versus 5'8" tall. So you're looking at approximately 1 foot 4 inches. That can make a huge difference. We're looking at over a head, well, roughly about a head or so taller. I mean, this guy's pretty big. And when it comes to sheer weight, Clownface, I mean not Clownface, but a Freakshow absolutely just demolishes him. Now this is the other part, because like I said, they're both low intelligence characters here. I didn't really put it down as much on the Maxx. He is a very low intelligence character. His intelligence really only shines in the Outback. Outside the Outback, he's more or less, he's not exactly intelligent by any means. It could be said that his insanity also kind of pushes him in this way, kind of teeters him a little bit. He's not, I would argue that Freakshow is not as intelligent as the Maxx, but they're both very, very highly unintelligent. I know it seems kind of weird, highly, low intelligence, but yeah, no, it's kind of a, yeah, but the thing is, when it comes down to who's more grounded, you have Freakshow. Freakshow is definitely a lot more grounded. He's also going to be quick to anger, which now means you're going to have that adrenaline rush. Adrenaline rush, you're almost looking at a multiplier. Typically, adrenaline can, we've seen people go from, not be able to lift a car to easily lifting a car at that point, just through just sheer adrenaline and willpower. This is a character that is very quick to that anger point, so that damage of being able to just going from 1200 psi to snap a spine to flinging somebody over 20 feet, and on top of that breaking their armor, which is also blunt resistant, mind you. This is where Freakshow is actually, it's not going to be consistent, okay? And I'm going to explain why, because just because he's quick to anger, he's also depressed and low intelligence. But now here's where the kicker is: easily manipulated. Doesn't take much to manipulate Freakshow. It really doesn't, as we got to see from Clownface. So when it comes down to it, who do we really have the edge for? Well, to be blunt, it's going, honestly, to Freakshow. And it comes down to not because of psychological aspects, but it goes back down to his sheer size and weight. That's going to give a huge advantage here for Freakshow. But when it does come down to the manipulation, all this, the Maxx is not intelligent enough to really utilize as a common thing. So, but as for the rest of the different stats here, or a different grid, or grid for the different points here, we also have strength, durability, speed and agility, martial prowess, ingenuity, powers, and gadgets. Now, equipment is also going to be as gadgets, so that's where things going to get categorized. So let's get on to our next one here, which is going to be our strengths. And so when we look at strength here, if we account for an inconsistent amount of anger and all this to really, that adrenaline rush to actually go and boost up Freakshow, we're looking at it's not going to be consistent enough. And you've got, it's simple numbers game here, 1800 psi versus 1200 psi. So really, who's gonna pull it here is ultimately the Maxx. I wouldn't say it's a huge difference by any means, but it's definitely consistent enough that Freakshow's not going to have an advantage here. Now, granted, his being able to fling the guys, this is going to affect that fight as well. But anything that Freakshow is going to be able to be capable of doing when it comes to flinging and damage like that, this is where you're also going to have the Maxx, who's going to be able to do the exact same thing. So, end of the day, that just goes straight to the Maxx, as you can see here. Like I said, not a huge advantage here. Next, we have our durability. So let's take a look at durability here. Durability, well, he's received Freakshow's received several small stabs and slashes and pretty much seemed unfazed. Now, that might seem like, okay, well, that seems kind of painful and all this. Well, that's where you get into the Maxx. The Maxx has a huge advantage over here, or over Freakshow on this one. And that's because he literally took lava, put him onto his hands,